Hello, hello. Happy Friday night. Let me get this out of here. Good grief. Little housekeeping. And that's how I roll in my Zen Den. I just chuck it aside. Happy Friday night. Welcome to my Zen Den. My name is Mandy VanHavermaet, and I am a demonstrator with Stampin' Up from Gray Eagle, Minnesota. I am so ready to stamp with you. I've actually been down here in my Zen Den trying to figure out what I want to show you tonight, and I had ideas popping in my head left and right, but I finally settled on taking a piece of designer series paper that I feel is a little tricky to cut, mostly because I always like to maximize my paper, right? And so, well, why don't I just show you? I'm going to show you, it's the Sun Prints designer series paper, and I'm going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. I find that it's hard to cut this paper because it's one big design. So let me flip the camera around. Hello, Pam. Hi, Joyce. Thank you for watching. I'm going to flip the camera around and we're going to get stamping. Okay. I need to figure out something to do with my chair because as I sit down, it makes the most terrible noise and I don't like it. It's the little things, the struggles in life. Okay. So, it is the Sun Prints designer series paper. It's mostly blues, so it's gray granite, night of navy, Pacific Point, and starry sky. So there's 3 blues with it, and then the gray and the basic white. And this piece here in particular, I found it just hard to cut because all the design is right down here, and it's so beautiful. I think it's so beautiful. And of course, the back is beautiful. It's like a cloudy kind of whitewashy or watercolory kind of thing, and that's beautiful, and I could use that all day long, right? But I want to use this, and so I'm like, how can I cut this? So I'm going to show you how I decided to cut this. This doesn't make it right. This is just a way that I'm using it. So what I'm going to do is bring in my paper trimmer, and I am going to cut this bottom section off, this part at 5.5. Because 5.5 is the size of a card, the length of a card, right? So I'm going to cut that off at 5.5. Now I've got lots of cards I can make with this, and I'm going to show you a couple here this evening. So that's that part. Now I've got this chunk here, and I could probably squeak out a card right here, right? Out and make it another beautiful patterned piece of paper. And then I've got this big dark spot, right? And let me tell you, this would work really good for scrapbooking too. But I am going to focus right here and get this corner out. And so what I'm going to do, my first card that I'm going to make, I'm going to cut this little piece of designer series paper. So I'm going to cut it at 4 inches right here. And so now I've got this piece for later for something else. And I'm going to cut this at 2 3/4. And now I'm actually going to stamp on this piece right here. And I've got another piece of the dark, and it's kind of got some pattern in there too. It's not solid. So let's put our paper trimmer away and let's bring in the rest of what I need for this card. So I'm going to use a card base that's Night of Navy, and that's 8.5 by 5.5, scored down the center at 4 1/4. I've got another piece of the Sun Prints designer series paper, and this one I've cut just, it was a piece that was patterned the same all the way through. I'm going to use this gray side. This is cut at 4 by 5 1/4, so just a nice mat. I've got a white scallop, and this is from the Color and Contour bundle, and this is the white scallop. I want to show you a trick too. It's got stamping on the back. I don't care. It's getting hidden. I use every piece, right? That's how I roll. You know me. All right, and so then I'm going to be using the stamp set for a couple of these cards. I'm going to be using the Good Feelings stamp set, and you know how I feel about big sentiments. I love big sentiments, right? So I'm going to be using this big stamp here, Sending Sunshine and Good Feelings Your Way. Okay, so let's get started on our card. Fold and burnish our Night of Navy. And we can go ahead and assemble a little bit, I suppose. I'm going to attach this down. I guess I didn't need to put that much adhesive on that side. All right, and I'm just going to center that. And I love this pack of paper. I do like the colors in it. It's very, very pretty. So I have got my, oh, I forgot to grab a scrap of paper. I've got my embossing buddy. And if you don't have an embossing buddy, rip my whole thing apart here. If you don't have an embossing buddy, they are now selling them. There's an embossing kit in the fall, the July to just December mini catalog. The embossing buddy is in there along with a tray. So you wouldn't need to use a piece of paper for your, to catch your embossing powder like I do. Okay, so I've got my piece of designer series paper and I just wiped it down with my embossing buddy. And what an embossing buddy does, it's kind of filled with like a chalk powder. And so it makes it so that the embossing powder only sticks to where the Versamark is stamped. The Versamark is kind of a sticky ink, so it makes it so it only sticks to where that Versamark is stamped. So I'm just going to ink that up really nicely and center the words, because my words are centered, but my stamp is not, if that makes sense. It's kind of cut kind of wonky, but it worked sufficiently great for me, so I just kept it. So I'm just holding it down there, making sure I get a nice, good impression, but don't rock it, because that's when you come up with problems. Okay, so I've got this nice, this is what Versamark does. It puts this nice, like, really sticky impression on there. And so now I've got white embossing powder. I'm just going to dump that on there and make sure it sticks. Tap off the excess. And if you get excess on there, it's really humid in my house tonight because it's like that really good time of year that's in between. I've always got just a brush, like a little paintbrush. I don't know where I got it. I use it for a lot of different things. This is one of them. I remove little pieces of embossing powder. So let's put this back into our jar before I have a problem. And cover that up. And now I'm going to take my heat gun and I am going to heat that up. Cover this up too. And my cord doesn't reach all the way to my camera, so. I don't know if you can see it there turning. Heat embossing, it never stops amazing me. I love heat embossing because it's so satisfying to me to watch that turn from like a powdery mess to this beautiful, beautiful image. I just love it. Every time. Okay, so I have cut this so that it's going to sit right inside of there. Okay, so because my house is humid and because I just heat embossed that and warmed up the paper, my paper has now kind of got this really nice curvy, like it doesn't lay flat. So I'm using quite a bit of adhesive on the back just to make that stick. All right, so there we go. It is just like that. So I'm going to adhere that. I'm going to use some dimensionals, and I'm going to be using a lot of dimensionals. Look at my pumpkin that's hiding back there. Keep your scraps. And I told you I was using a lot of dimensionals here, right? I don't want it sagging. And I'm just going to kind of canter this on just like that. Isn't that pretty? Oh, so pretty. Let's add a bow. I'm going to, this is the, let's see, crinkled seam binding ribbon. This is one of those ribbons that are like, if you're scared to tie bows, get this ribbon. It is phenomenal. It's so easy to tie. You can't mess it up. I'm doing my bunny ears tonight. Sometimes I do bunny ears, sometimes I don't do bunny ears. It's all in how I guess it's in my mood, and I'm in a bunny ear mood tonight. I go in streaks. Ah, and there I said it ties nice, and now I've got a goofy bow. It's good. Okay, let's trim the ends off here, just like that. Easy for me to say. There we go. All right, and I'm going to put that bow, I think I'm just going to put, my bow is wonky. Sure, I say it's an easy bow to tie, this ribbon to tie a bow with, and then I have a wonky bow. And that's why it curled. Okay, let's try a non-bunny ear bow. See, I should never brag. That's what bragging gets you. It's so easy. Sure it is. Isn't that always the way? Concentration. Sorry, I have to be very quiet. I cannot talk and tie a bow. There, I like this one better. Whew, the pressure. Okay. There, so much happier with that bowl. I've got to find a glue dot right here. And my center of my bow is a little small, so I'm just going to actually fold my glue dot in half, which sounds goofy, but it works. There we go. So that's card number 1 with our piece of designer series paper. Let's put an inside in it so that we can write a note sending sunshine and good feelings your way. Could be just a note card, could be a get well card, could be lots of things. So love that. That's card number 1. Okay, so let's go on to card number 2. I'm going to stick right along with that stamp set. Okay, and so now I am going to, I think what I'm going to do is take just this part right here. So this is already 5.5. I'm going to cut this at 4. So let's bring in our trimmer again. And this is a ridiculously easy card that I'm going to be making. It doesn't really get a whole lot easier than this. Because isn't that beautiful? That alone right there, just an absolutely beautiful piece of paper. And I love our designer series paper that's like that. So I've got a, this is the instructions for this one. I've got a card base, just a standard card base, 8.5 by 5.5, scored down the center at 4.25. Fold and burnish that. And then really and truly, all I'm going to do is plop that baby right down onto there. And I should mention I'm using a thick whisper white, or thick basic white. The white cardstock seems to be a little less substantial than colored cardstock. So if I'm not putting a lot of layers on, I like to use the basic or the thick basic white, just to kind of make sure that my card isn't floppy. Isn't that beautiful? Okay, so now I've got just the thank you stamp from that same Good Feelings stamp set. And I'm going to bring in my Night of Navy ink pad. And actually, you know what? I can emboss this. Let's emboss it just for fun. Since I've got all my embossing stuff out. If you act fast, you can emboss using our regular ink pads. Night of Navy is a good one to do that with. So we're going to not use our Versamark, but we're going to have to act fast, like I said. So let's get all of our supplies ready here. I've got my my basic. I'm not going to use white. Whew, that could have been bad. Let's use clear. We got to use clear, because otherwise you put white on top of blue or on top of Night of Navy, it's not going to work. We need to use clear embossing powder. So ink up our stamp really nicely. Press down and then come right in over it quickly with our clear embossing powder. And so that's what it's going to look like. Let's put our embossing powder back in the jar so we don't blow it all over the desk. We don't need that to happen. And now I'm going to quickly use my heat gun again. All right. So there we go. We've got that beautiful kind of sheen on there now, and it's kind of raised up a bit. Love that. So I am going to use not that bunch. That's not the one I want. I put away the one I wanted. I'm going to use the decorative circle punch. That fits this thank you very nicely. So we're going to punch that out, just like that. And I'm going to use some dimensionals, and I'm going to put that right down on here. And where you want your thank you is totally up to you. I'm going to put it kind of over some of the image, just because that's what I want to do. And then with the blue and white, I really like, let's see, that's where I'm going to place it. With blue and white, I really like the look of silver with it. So I'm just going to use the basic rhinestone jewels in white. Did you know you can color these? You can use Stampin' Blends and color these any color you want. Yep, it's kind of fun. It's really fun, actually. But I like the silver with this card. I think it's very striking with the navy blue and the dark blues. Well, I guess we're going to put that one there. You know what? Let's put a couple more. All right. I don't want it up that high. There we go. Just like that. That's card number 2. Like I said, super simple. Can't get a whole lot more simpler than that, right? And a thank you card, you really don't need to put anything on the inside unless you want to, because usually you write a note of things, right? So that is card number 2. Okay, card number 3. Card number 3, I've got a few more little techniques. There's not going to be any embossing on that one, and I'm bringing in a different stamp set. So what I'm going to do is my designer series paper. I'm sorry, this card was this base, this here one. I'm sorry. This middle one is the one we're going to do now. I can do this job. Okay, so I'm going to have a card base, just a regular card base, and now I'm going to cut a strip of 2.5 by 5.5. And I really like these seed pods on this side right there. I just think those are pretty, and they're unique. You don't see that very often. I've got more cards here. I don't have enough time to show you tonight all of the cards I can make out of this piece of 12 by 12, but you're getting the gist. Cut it up to how you want to use it. Okay, so now I am going to pull in a card base, 8.5 by 5.5, scored down the center at 4.25. Again, this is thick, basic white. Okay. And so now I'm going to use, as an accent, I'm going to use some silver foil paper. But I want to tell you a secret. You can save your trimmer blade. Foil paper and photo paper, any kind of specialty paper, really wreaks havoc on our blades. So what I do is when I change out my trimmer blades, when I put a new one in, I keep the old one, which I have around here somewhere, because I was going to show you, and I need to show you. Oh. I have another set of trimmer blades that I keep, and it's in my old container. Oh, how embarrassing. Anyhow, I keep a trimmer blade. Oh, I'm ticked off. Where did it go? I think my cats were here. I'm going to blame my cats. Anyhow, I keep a trimmer blade separate to cut foil paper and photo paper, because when I'm scrapbooking, I use photo paper. So I'm going to take one for the team. I'm going to use my new blade because I can't find my old blade, but I keep it marked with a silver line so that I know that that's the blade I'm going to use for that purpose. All right, so I'm going to cut 1/4 inch strips. And I didn't cut them earlier just so I could show you my hack. Son of a gun. So I'm just measuring here at 1/4 inch increments. And the reason I do that is because I like to save my, our foil paper comes in such small packs. It's economical to do it this way. So keep a spare blade. Don't use the one that's in your trimmer. You can change them out. They are easy to change out. They lift right out. There's a little notch right down here. Fate is not on my side tonight. I promise they're easy to, there we go. It's easy to pop out and pop in. There's a little notch down there. Just like that. Put the old blade in, use that, and then put your new blade back in. Keep your old blade separate. That's my hack that I'm not showing you because I messed up. Okay, so here's my paper. I'm going to fold and burnish it. I swear to God, guys, I do have a relatively, I know where my stuff's at in my office, but I turn this camera on and it just kind of disappears. Not sure why. Okay, so I am going to center it. And originally when I made this card, I was thinking of doing it this way, but then I got to designing and I was going to stamp and I decided I wanted it this way. So we're going to just attach this down. In the center. Just like that. And now our little strips of silver foil, the way that I attach those is I add liquid glue right on the white, right next to the designer series paper. Just a thin little bead. Just like that. And then I just butt it right up to the edge of the designer series paper. So it looks like I have a full piece of foil under there, but I really don't. I have just strips. And that's going to save your foil strips and make them go a long, long ways, right? All right. So I always just kind of flip it over and make sure there's nothing overhanging like there is. And I trim off the excess. And I like to make it actually just a little bit longer than my card base, just so that it's perfect, perfectly perfect. Okay. And now I'm going to bring in a stamp set. And this is actually a Christmas stamp set called Hope and Peace. I like Christmas stamp sets that are faith-based. But this one is really interesting because it has an awesome sentiment right here. God's blessings to you. That sentiment I feel you could use for confirmations, baptisms, first communions, just a hello card, just a greeting card. I loved that sentiment. So I like all the sentiments in it. I think they're great sentiments, but I really liked that one. So we're going to bring in our Night of Navy ink pad again. And I've got that all mounted up. And I'm going to put that sentiment right down there. Just like that. Isn't that perfect? I love it. And I'm not going to add any more embellishments or anything to this card. I think with the silver strips on there, I think that's enough bling. It's subdued. It's perfect. I love that card. I think it's so pretty, and I love that sentiment. Perfect. So here are our 3 cards for tonight. And they're not written in correct order, but here are the measurements for it. So if you want to take a screenshot, and then I'm going to flip the, oh, no, I'm going to show you. I made one more. You don't have to stick with white and blue and gray. You can absolutely take that strip, that paper, and mix it with different colors. So here I've got Mary Merlot paper. I've got the, let's see what ribbon this is called, Natural Finish ribbon. It's a nice thick ribbon. I've got that on there, and a little bit of crumb cake with soft suede ink. So you don't need to stick with only white and blues and grays. You can absolutely mix that up with some different colors. There's no rules here, right? It's what we like, it's what we want to do. So let me flip the camera back around. Oh. It's all because we're watching you. Just like typing on a computer. Yes, yes. When somebody is watching you type, it's horrible. It's terrible. It's like your fingers just forget where to go. I know that as soon as I shut this off, this camera off, those blades are going to just go bling, and they're going to be like flashing neon. I'll let you know. So anyhow, I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. I am so appreciative that you joined me tonight to watch, and I hope that you got some tips and you learned, and I will see you again next Friday night. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.